How is it going, everybody? I'd like to thank everybody for their recent support. Those of you that are new, those of you that have been there for a while, thank you. Let's talk about certification myths just for a moment and do some clarification chat, because I've gotten a couple of messages and certification myths, regarding, the test procedure, the test preparation, and then like lab equipment and your study plan and things like that. So, number one myth, Cisco does not play trick questions. They don't. I've taken a lot of Cisco exams. Route switch, they're very specific. Security, they're very, very specific. There is a no frills answer listed. So if you think for at any moment in your certification exam that they are trying to pull your leg or trying to catch you in a fast one, there are going to be some exam questions that they're going to slide in to the deck of cards that you are being challenged with as a way for them to qualify a particular test question. So they're testing new questions all the time. You won't know one is different from the other. So for those ones that they're qualifying as potential test questions, you don't actually get you don't actually get graded against that. So the other thing too is on the certification exam, I don't have one in front of me or available that I think of. What they will do actually is, you know how that range of score you get? So you'll start off with like 300 to 800, will be the range, or like you'll know your passing score is X when you first start out the exam. They tell you what you need to pass with. It's not a start from 1,000 down. It's a start at 300, right? You start at 300. That's your starting point. As soon as you click the exam and you type in your, non-disclosure agreement, and stuff like that, you automatically start with 300 points. All you have to do is score enough points through the test in order to meet the minimum score. That's how the scoring works. Same thing with CCNP. Same thing with CCIE. You start off with no points and you work your way up. The questions that you will be asked will be difficult. No bones about that. No issues. If you don't know, pick the one that makes the most sense. I'm like, well, I have no idea which one makes the most sense. Well, you're going to have to go back to engineer intuition. What does that mean? Simple. I'm looking at a question. I'm not 100% sure which answer is the right one. I reread the question, and I try to look at the answers. And I say, okay, you know what? It might be this. And I'm going back from when I was going for CCNA and CCNP. I can tell you, when I took my written exam for the CCIE, I had 100 questions, and I finished in 1 hour and 40 minutes. Nothing on the test was difficult. What the time-consuming portion wasn't trying to figure out which answer was the best. It was reading either the question or understanding the scenario and looking at the answers. That was the time-consuming part. Because regardless of what level certification you're going after, they are going to basically approach the question with the level of understanding you should have based off the blueprint. That brings me to my next point. Know every bullet point on the blueprint. Now, I know in the CCNA exam version 3 that's coming out here in August, I believe, September, there was one bullet item that I highlighted, which was doing a path trace with the APIC EM. If you don't look that up, which it's a simple Google to check that out if you didn't know, if you don't spend the time to look that one up, I can guarantee, well, I won't say guarantee, it is very, very likely you won't fail the exam if you don't know the answer to that, unless you haven't scored enough points up to that point. So the blueprint is there for a reason, and you really need to go through and thoroughly understand the concepts, and you thoroughly need to understand the configuration if there is any that you might see. If it's telling you to describe or describe anything, that means they're not going to be configuring anything. They're going to be asking you questions about the technology. If they say, describe the role of the root bridge in spanning tree protocol, and they don't get specific, then you have to imply, that implies, and you have to infer that that means regular 802.1d spanning tree per VLAN spanning tree. So what does the root bridge do? It sends out BPDUs. It's the central processor. It basically hosts the information, making sure that all the VLAN information and all of the VLANs and the trunking and whatnot are converged, and there's no loops. That's what the root bridge does. So there's a level of intuition that you need to have, and if you don't know, if none of the answers make sense to you, you didn't spend enough time in that area. And I would take a mental note of that. There was plenty of times where I'd be like, not sure. Write that one down. My first attempt at a CCIE, I knew I had failed in the first hour because I got like one ticket right, or at least I thought I had. I had gotten one ticket, and I was like, okay, this sucks. So rather than get bent out of shape and leave the exam, I stayed the entire day. I knew I had failed, but I used that as a learning opportunity. I went and I walked through the exam, I read through all the stuff, and I tried to do my best. I passed the diagnostic section in all 3 attempts, and because I know how to diagnose things. I know how to identify what the problem is, and based off of what the information was given. So that's one of the things that I had to do. I had to sit there and stop and think, okay, what's this? So I took really, really good notes. I read through the exam, the task in the exam, and I made sure I understood what was going on, so that I could take that to the next level. On my second attempt, I came very, very close to passing. So it's understanding what they're asking you is really the important part. So that's why I'm a big proponent of spend extra time labbing, spend extra time understanding the technology, do debugs, do Wireshark captures. That's why you see me doing Wireshark captures all the time. If I can, I do one. But that goes without saying. The other thing that is brought up a lot is that the certification exams, for those of you that have ever gone for or studying for CCIE, the proctor at your CCIE lab location does not grade your lab. They don't. You know, I've asked the proctor, do you grade my exam? If they were to grade your exam, let's say for instance, you try to befriend or become cool with the proctor. You know, you sit there, you talk to him or talk to her, and you try to become friendly with them. And you know, when you become cool with somebody, you tend to want to do a little more for them than what you did before you knew them. And so the proctors locally don't do that. So like let's say it's your 6th or 7th or 8th attempt at the CCIE lab. The proctor that you're taking the exam with that day does not grade your exam. That exam is graded by a proctor you've never met. Well, maybe you've met them, but it's graded by a different testing center. So like here in the U.S., there's 2 of them. You have RTP and you have San Jose. I've taken my lab in RTP, and then I receive my results at 1:30 in the morning each day, or each time I took the test. So either my lab, and I'm just guessing here, was graded either by San Jose, and then it took a while to get going, or it was graded by Australia or Japan or something like that, or maybe even Brussels. I honestly have no idea. I don't even want to guess. I have no idea. I don't really care. But the lab was graded and done that way. So the proctor does not grade your exam at the location you're at. So don't ever do a reread. And for those of you that score well enough to get a reread, don't ever do a reread. Bad idea. Testing, when you're going through your lab preparation. So when I say lab preparation, I mean exam preparation. Go through that blueprint and go through it as deep as you need to go till you know that technology inside and out. But remember that you're only going to be tested at the level which they state in the exam blueprint. So if they say, describe rapid spanning tree protocol with the, what is the difference between a shared port versus a point-to-point port. If you don't know what the difference between those two are, you're going to want to know what they are. So that's one feature that you're going to want to make sure you know and go from there. That's going to be a huge portion of your test that you're going to want to make sure you completely understand. On top of that, there are portions of your test that will require you to regurgitate a lot of information very, very quickly. So like, for instance, you might get tossed a troubleshooting issue. Well, you've got to be able to identify what that problem is. How do you identify what the problem is? That goes back to your original preparation. One of the things that I always harp on, and I'm a big proponent of, is if you are going to be studying for a certification exam, you need to be able to go and basically, you basically need to be able to go out there and you need to lab up every potential topic on there and break it as you're going along. So like, for instance, in ICND1, the new one that's coming out, they want you to configure RIP version 2, but literally just turn the process on, throw no auto summary in there, and then version 2, and configure a network statement, and boom, you're done. That's literally all they're having you do. They completely bound your hands to what you could possibly get touched on, and excuse me. So you're not going to be tested on anything hardcore. So that's going to help you basically dial in where you need to be sitting your studying at. Excuse me. Dinner is coming back to talk to me. Beyond that, lab preparation. If you're lab equipment or what have you, 3 or 4 years ago, I went out and I spent like $1,400, something like that, on physical gear for the CCIA version 4 lab. I basically took what INE had built out for their version 4 lab exam for their rack rentals. I had mirrored it here at home, and I just went through and I spent a bunch of money on equipment that I don't really need. So nowadays you can virtualize most of it. As you can see, I've got NXOS here on the Enviro running. So I've got a bunch of F2 modules and the Nexus 7K. So a lot of this stuff is really broken down to what you're being tested on. So not to go long in the tooth here, but as I want to keep this video rather short, your preparation is going to be need to map to the certification blueprint. When you're coming to build out a lab, you have to remember that when you're building out your lab, you don't need a ton of equipment. Now, if you're a person that says, well, I need to be able to touch that stuff and be able to cable and whatnot, that's fine. When you're first starting out in the industry, I completely agree with that. Whether you use packet tracer just to get the general understanding of how crossover cables are different than straight-through cables, or if you really need to go through and, you can't see it, but off to my left, I've got a bunch of routers and switches stacked up. Go through and, buy some equipment. Don't spend thousands and thousands of dollars. Try to go as cheap as you possibly can. And you don't need to be on the latest code either. Any code you can download from Cisco's website that will, that's got any backbone towards it. So like anything like advanced IP services, advanced enterprise services, download any code train you can. Sometimes you can even buy equipment with the right code on it. So that's what I would do. I would go out to like eBay and like type in 3725 with 12415T Advanced Enterprise Services. That's actually what I'm running here at home. Because like I said, I mapped it to the CCIA version 4 lab was on 12415 or 124T Advanced Enterprise Services. So I knew that platform very, very well. Matter of fact, a 3725 is what routes my home internet. So that's pretty much how that works. So you really need to focus on that particular area first. Know how the build out works. So there's different things that you need to take into consideration. One of those is if you need to reach out to me, drop a comment in the comments below, and I'll help you out. I've got no problem. If you say, hey, I'm looking at buying XYZ this, I'll recommend a platform. and a co-train, and then you go about finding what works for you. Whether you're in India, whether you're in the UK, whether you're in, the Western United States, whether you're in Australia, Russia, I don't really care where you're at. If I can help you pick the right gear, I'm going to take the time to do that. So it's one of those big things that you need to, me being an instructor doesn't stop at teaching you technologies and whatnot. For those of you that have been doing this for a while, like myself, that don't need the physical gear, you've got, you know how you've touched it, you work in, you have a regular day job where you touch the stuff. Most engineers, like myself, I don't usually touch the gear. We have cabling guys that do the cabling for us. We usually have the cabling guys usually help or do the rack and stack. So I don't usually ever touch physical gear anymore, unless I'm trying to configure it. And usually what I'll do is I'll take my laptop into the data center. I'll connect into it to give it an IP address so I can go back to my desk and I can configure it remotely. So like when I'm configuring things, I usually have a base config for stuff, and then I build it out as I go. And I go from there. Usually I have the config already built as I'm going along. So unless it's on the fly, I hardly ever have to type in anything manually. I usually have already got the config built in Notepad, and I literally just copy and paste it in the config. So that's why I like doing these labs that I do here, because it actually helps. I'm actually able to walk through the configs and stuff like that. So cool stuff there. So building out your home lab, whether you use GNS3, Viral, physical gear, rack rentals, whatever helps you understand the technologies and get through them, that much better off. Don't listen to people that tell you, you should know this stuff already, you should do this, you should do that. Take the advice from people that are giving you the advice, but don't be afraid to ask. A closed mouth does not get fed. And for any of those naysayers out there that want to sit there and talk about how, you should be doing, you should be able to figure this out on your own, this, that, and the other, that's a bunch of crap. There's a reason why there's people like myself that have YouTube channels that put out content like this for people that, don't have the experience. I wish somebody would have been out there, or I would have been smarter when it was coming time to, build out a lab, to, say, hey, there's this, there's that, don't do this, do that. That would have saved me a ton of time, but I didn't have that resource, or I hadn't found it at that point in time anyway. So that's pretty much what's up, guys. I'm a big proponent of let the people that are going to, just blow hot air, let them blow hot out. Let them go pound sand, and away you go. And, do what you got to do. Simple as that. I do what I got to do. As a last little bit here, I do have CCNPv2 Switch. I have the topology built here. I will be putting this into Notepad, into Paint, and I will be putting together I'm actually building out the slides where I'm putting together some, I wouldn't say cheap, but it's going to be a PowerPoint for CCNPv2. It's going to be more bullet points of what some of the things, and then you'll be required to go through and take notes and stuff like that. And I'll teach you what you need to know for the CCNP exam and whatnot. I'm also going to be throwing some Nexus in there, as you can see. So I'll be doing that, and going about that to see how we can do things. And as a matter of fact, this new position that I'm in, I took a new job with a new enterprise company here just recently, and one of the things that I've had to do that I've never done before is set up a pair of fabric interconnects for some Nexus. So we had like a couple of Nexus 7010s that are peered down to some fabric interconnects, some 6296s as an FI that connect down to some UCS servers. So having to get the UCS or the fabric interconnects to talk to each other over the peer link, which is basically just a heartbeat between them, and configuring, getting them set up to VPC up to the Nexus, and then setting up the ports that go down to the servers as server ports and stuff like that. I had never done that before, so it was very, very cool. I'd never touched that, and it's like one of my first little mini projects when I first got this position. So very, very excited about that. Very, very excited about moving forward with this position. Very, very large network, lots and lots of stuff going on, and I'm extremely excited about it, and I haven't been this excited in quite some time. So with that being said, I want to keep this video short. If you have any comments, questions, concerns, any influential information, please drop it in the comments below. So next time, you guys have been awesome. Keep it up. Peace out.